Hello, everyone. Annie, can you believe we are already nearing the end of Easter 2023?
Yes, it was a very exciting day, but unfortunately, it almost came to an end. We have one last speaker today. It's actually the last keynote speaker. His name is Jason Beres. He's the Senior Vice President of Developer Tools at Infragistics, and he will be our closing keynote. Something about him. Jason and his team spearhead the customer-driven innovative features and functionality throughout all Infragistics testing, developer, and user experience products. Jason works directly with Infragistics customers around the globe to ensure that their needs are met through our products and roadmaps. He's a former Microsoft.NET MVP, and he's the author of several books on software development, covering topics like SQL Server, Visual Basics, Rich Client, and web development. Jason is a national and international conference speaker and keeps very active in the developer and UX community. Jason, welcome on stage.
Thank you. That was very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you. OK, so I'm the last one today. I won't keep anyone here longer than I have to. But the raffle is after me, so hopefully at least you stay for that. So today, I'm using my computer up here, so I don't have the clicker to change the slides, so I'll kind of be moving back and forth. But what I want to talk about is trends in software engineering. I had like 10, then I had like 100 slides, so I had to get rid of like 7 of them, so we're down to 3, which I think aren't new to anyone. You could probably guess what the first one's going to be, because that's all anyone ever talks about. But I want to elaborate on why these are important for you to focus on and to think about. But the big thing that I want to emphasize is while we're all here talking about engineering, best practices, and things like that, it's always for an end user. It's always for a customer. And when your management is talking about what to build next and what features that they need to drive business, they're talking about business outcomes, they're talking about business value. So everything that you're doing, you need to circle back around and determine, does it have high business value? Is the business outcome what we need to drive revenue? Or is it just because it's cool, because it's AI? I think the previous speaker had a lot of great examples. His graph wasn't the best, his diagram, but he won the business because it was clear, easy to read, easy to understand, and the guy's like, it doesn't mean I like it, but you're going to get my business, right? So there was a high business value to what he did, and he got the work. So those are the things that we need to consider when we're talking about features and functionality. So this is about me. I've been at Infragistics for about 20 years. I was an MVP. I've written a bunch of different books, mostly now. I'm talking to customers and figuring out what the best approach is for what we build. Still very heavily into technology. Still do some bit of programming, but not a whole lot. Nothing to the degree of what I saw you guys demonstrating today in all the great talks. But here's the 3 that I boiled down to in terms of trends that really do deliver business value and business outcomes. The first one being AI, of course. It's all about AI. The second one being composable apps, which might be maybe an old concept, but a new approach, just because technology has moved us forward in such a way where it's easy to build composable apps, and you can sort of define business value in something much smaller, like a micro or a mini app, that can be used by some other framework that you may know nothing about or have anything to do with. And then low code. If you're not using low code, you're going to see today why you should be using low code. So let's first talk about generative AI. This is really crazy. There was a survey done by Gartner, and of course, 52% of IT leaders expect to use generative AI to build software, which is no surprise. You looked at Donna's keynote today, all the co-pilots and all of this stuff helping developers do their jobs better. We talk to some of the biggest organizations in the world, and they're already at 50%. They're using models and they're improving, they're fine-tuning models, right? They're just adding stuff to the edges to make it better for them. And they're seeing improvements of 1%, 2%, 3% a month in productivity using AI to generate code, to build unit tests, all these things that you're seeing today. So how are you taking advantage of AI in your business to deliver business value? But I think the funny thing is the 30% of IT leaders who do not expect to use AI. So if I was those 30% or the guys that work for those 30%, I would be like, man, I'm going to have a good job next year because I'm going to get promoted because my boss doesn't believe in AI, which is pretty crazy that there is still people running IT in companies that don't believe that AI really is something that can drive not only just extreme productivity, but really extreme business value. And so when we first started looking at things like ChatGPT at Infragistics and started to talk to customers, when it was very new, like last year, there was a lot of naysayers and like it doesn't really do what I asked it to do. It didn't give me the results I expected. And you'll still hear this today. And I mean, I use it all the time, and you really have to work at it to get to your results. But there's no doubt that it increases productivity, but it also increases your satisfaction of your job. So a lot of us do boring work, right? You're doing the same crap you've done forever, and I'm much older than most of you, and it's the same stuff that people did like 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And when I talk to managers all over the world, they're like, I hate walking by the desks where my developers are working and I see them writing all this code in console windows and Notepad and all these other tools. Why do we still have to do all this stuff? And that's where AI can really help out. The purpose of it is to really drive your productivity while it's, learning about what you're trying to build and what your job is or what context it's trying to improve for your current tasks. So the developer experience, this is data from GitHub. Many of you may have seen it. But before I show this, how many people have used like GitHub Copilot? Wow, so like not many. How many people will use it after you saw all this stuff today? Only a few more. Huh. That's pretty crazy. I think some people are afraid to raise their hand. But these are real numbers. So Microsoft, when they release GitHub Copilot, of course, they have to tell everyone how great it is because they want to charge money for it. So if you look at the charts here, when using GitHub Copilot, I am more productive. This was 68% of people. Satisfaction and well-being. They feel less frustrated, 60% of people. So what this does is when you're sitting there and it's like 7 p.m. and you want to go home because you've been working on something since 7 a.m., if an AI can answer a question for you or fix something really silly that you know is silly, it can do it in an instant. And maybe it's not perfect code. Maybe you still have to have someone check it and make sure that it's good enough to get checked in and into your continuous integration process, but you can move past that. And that's what AI is doing, and it's proven results. It's proving to actually do that for people. So the big thing, however, that you do need to focus on when you're starting to learn the AI is the prompt engineering. You heard about it in the testing talk. You heard Donna talk about it. You probably heard it outside in different other talks. But learning how to ask the AI questions to give it more and more context will give you better and better answers. So if you start with something and you're like, oh, this is crap. All right, well, how can I rephrase this? What you might want to do is ask the AI how to ask the question, and then it'll give you suggestions. So you can say, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. Can you give me better ways to ask you so you give me a better answer? And then it'll give you like 10 options. And you say, well, that's actually what I want to do. Grab that one, ask it again, or you don't even have to grab it. You just say, can you use the third one that you mentioned? And it'll just go ahead and do it. So that's how easy this is when you're having these chat experiences. And the nice thing is, it is actually a chat. So every time you ask a question, it's taken the whole context of everything you've asked it, and it's answered, it's reposting it, and then it's coming up with that next thing. So it does know what's going on. One of the tricks I just learned in Visual Studio Code is the more tabs you have open with the stuff that you're working on, the GitHub Copilot will prioritize all those open tabs. So let's say, for example, you're working with a data set and you want to parse this data set or ask questions about this data set. If you have that JSON open in a tab, and you just say, hey, in this data set, can you X, Y, Z, give me the top 10 of whatever, it'll automatically do that based on the fact that it's open. So it's inferring that, hey, you want to do something here, I'm going to go ahead and use what I'm aware of in the context of what's happening right now in VS Code. So doing this prompt engineering and learning how to use or how to ask the AI questions will give you better answers. And this was another thing. Donna kind of mentioned this already in her keynote, but these guys, they were given the same problem. 45 people used GitHub Copilot, 50 did not. The ones that used it saved an hour and 30 minutes doing the same exact task. So it's kind of hard to argue against that, right? And maybe they didn't get the right answer the first time. And honestly, I would love to know what took an hour and 11 minutes, because this thing, once you start learning how to ask it questions, it just churns out code for you. And I just saw a video on the flight over here coming from the US, and they did an entire Node Express app with just prompting. So doing get, post, puts, deletes, creating the interfaces, creating the objects, doing all the code. And the guy was just in GitHub Copilot asking it questions. The whole video was 7 minutes. So it definitely is something to take a look at. So my recommendations for this first topic, start using AI today to accelerate your productivity. Everyone has access to these copilots. So you can use GitHub Copilot. I think they charge money for it, but you can also get a free trial. ChatGPT has a free version. The paid version, ChatGPT Plus, is like $20 a month. And what that means is you pay that extra money and you can always log in. So one of the things with ChatGPT is sometimes it's not available because there's so many people on the system. If you pay, you get the ChatGPT Plus, and you can always log in, and you get some other benefits too, like plugins and whatnot. There's a new data analysis plugin, so you can take like a whole data set, either from Excel or a JSON file, XML file, and actually upload it to the AI, and then do graphs, charts, ask it questions. They'll do all the data analysis for you, so it's pretty slick, and it'll give you the code. So in case you want to just do it yourself, you can copy that code into Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code and just go for it. The second thing is to look at your existing portfolio and figure out how you can enable AI to your customers. Because one of the things is these big guys like Microsoft and others, they're training us to get this little box and to ask questions, right? Just like Google search. So this is what your customers are going to expect from your applications. So you need to start thinking about, is there value in what we deliver to our customers through prompts? Can we do AI on the back end, either using Microsoft Azure ML, which is using ChatGPT on the back end, using ChatGPT's interfaces? You can also just hook into their APIs with your own stuff. But think about that for your own customers, because if you don't offer something AI and your competitors do, you are quickly going to see, just from a pure marketing perspective, that they will have perceived value above what you're offering because AI is so hot now. So that's the message on AI, and that is the first big business value outcome that you need to think about. The second one is composable apps. Composable apps are not new, but this concept of composability is getting more mature because technology and capabilities are greater now. So when we think about a plugin, we're thinking about, I go to a marketplace and I'm downloading this UI, like I go into my Edge or Google marketplace and I install a plugin. It's always about the user interface. Like, I have this user interface that's going to do this. Well, if you think about a composable app, something that is like a framework that's just sitting there waiting for things to go inside of it, that you need to build it differently. It might not be all about the UI. It's about the API and the event channels that you're exposing. So if we think about using like Power Apps, is it Power Apps or Power Flow, where you're giving sort of, if this happens, then go ahead and do this. Oh, if this next thing happens, go ahead and do this. Certain applications have event listeners, so if something happens in Jira or TFS, it'll trigger something to go do something else in some other application. That is some level of composability, but it's not what this is talking about. So when you're building an application, think about the API, think about the event channel, and think about everything that's happening there to be able to consume someone else's sign-on, someone else's data. So the concept of composability extends beyond what you're traditionally thinking in terms of the user interface. So Gartner had another statistic about these composable applications. By 2025, 60% of new SaaS designs will support both UI-first and API-first applications. So it's not always going to be about the UI. So we talk about design, we talk about design systems, we talk about being pluggable, but how are you enabling that in your applications? So if you remember maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, it was like, how are you monetizing your APIs? Well, I'm monetizing my APIs by charging people for my data. That's different. That's just like I have an API and I have data to sell and I'm going to make money off my API. It's not about really what's considered a PBC or a packaged business capability. So I have a business capability. This might be something like an e-commerce flow. It might be something as simple as like I'm generating some code based on some random input and I'm going to output it somewhere else, but it's in an application. That's a packaged business capability, and that's what's delivering this level of business outcome. Why is this important? Well, if you've heard of super apps, how many people have heard of super apps? A few people. So this is maybe a newer concept for most, but super apps are all the rage in Asia. And so when you think of something like WeChat, the other big one is Alipay, they have built frameworks, which is just an application framework for everyone else to come and play in their sandbox. And what they're doing is if you're going to come play in our sandbox, you need to enable this level of data sharing, you need to use our single sign-on, you need to have these types of events, you need to use this design system or this user experience, but what we're going to offer you in return is a crap load of users. And so when you think about WeChat has 4.3 million mini apps as part of their framework. So if you think searching the Apple App Store is hard to find an application or a mobile app for your phone, imagine a single mobile app being able to search a directory of 4.3 million mini apps that you can use. Everything from I want to scan QR codes for an event to I want to add things to shopping carts when I'm at a grocery store, to payment, to you name it. I mean, there's 4.3 million. But the big thing is that these super apps rival the number of users of Facebook, of X, formerly known as Twitter, for what the number of people using these super apps are. So Elon Musk with X, he wants that to be a super app. That's ultimately his goal, is right now it's a platform. So he has the platform piece. Mostly it does news and social feeds. So how can he integrate other things like payments? Well, he started PayPal, so he could probably figure out how to integrate payments in there. But now he needs to make it attractive so other people join in. So the 15 popular super apps, WeChat, Alipay being the biggest ones, what they've done is they've made this app attractive enough by having some core capabilities which are attracting users to these applications, which then wants to bring everyone else in. In the US, and it's probably the same here, if you're building a strip mall, you want a Starbucks on the corner, right, of your strip mall, because if there's a Starbucks there, you're going to get a lot. Well, actually, now it's a Chick-fil-A. You want a Chick-fil-A on your corner, because if there's a Chick-fil-A in your strip mall and you can convince them to put a store there, you're going to get 100,000 more cars in that parking lot a week than the guy across the street who doesn't have the Chick-fil-A. And so that's really the same concept. I want to pull people in to my mall because I have something good to offer. And now what you need to do is think about what you're delivering in your businesses. Is there something that you could turn into a mini app, a micro app, something that's composable that potentially you could add into other frameworks or could be consumed by maybe one of the existing super apps that are out there? So the recommendation here is obviously start with the business value. Everything isn't a super app. Like Infragistics has a lot of products. I can't think of any that would go inside as a micro app into a super app without like totally re-architecting what we offer in the market. But you might have something different. You might have something that can be composable, that can be pluggable into some other ecosystem. The big thing, though, when you're doing this, I have the second bullet, the composable experience should be API first. But remember that your customers of this is ultimately going to be developers, right? Because they have to integrate it in to maybe their application. So documentation is critical, examples on how to use it, all the things that you do for your product so people maybe within your company can use it or others are going to be important when we talk about app composability. So that's number 2, and it seems like that's a very new concept. Only a couple people raised their hand. And it's very big in Asia, and it'll eventually make its way over. I think applications that we all use, like X and Facebook, will eventually maybe morph into things like this. And then the third is low code. How many people are using low code tools today? All right, not many people using low code. So low code comes in many forms, and I didn't include it in this presentation, but I did a talk only on low code for SD Times, and I did like the top 50 low code open source tools. So when I think about low code, because we have a low code product, I think about building user interfaces, WYSIWYG, drag and drop, all this great stuff. But low code could mean a lot. So low code could be I'm doing something on my data side on the back end because I don't want to write that code. There is a low-code tool in Visual Studio. It's called the Entity Framework Power Tool, where you just point it to the database and it rips through and it generates like gazillions of lines of code, and you don't have to worry about any of your Entity Framework code. It just kind of works, right? So that's a low-code tool. There's low-code tools that build forms and they automate stuff like that. So there's a ton of low-code tools out there. If you want to just Google search SD Times and my name, low-code, you'll get the whole list of all of these out there because there's tons of them. But here's why you should be thinking about low-code for your own productivity, and then how you might be even thinking about micro apps and delivering these packaged business value out to the market. So in 2025, it's predicted that the low-code market space is $29 billion in revenue. So that's $29 billion. That's a lot of money. But the bigger thing is that where low-code comes into play is that 41% of people in your company are technologists, right? So they're not developers. They're not in IT. They're in marketing. They're in sales. They might be your CEO. Like our CEO, he's a business technologist. He wants to use these tools. But you have to enable them to do work, right? How do you enable them to accelerate all the things they're always nagging you in IT about? Well, you give them tools, and you give them low-code tools. And that's why these tools are becoming so popular, because it kind of started out as like, we need some marketing automation stuff. There's like, there's this form builder, and they can build a form that accepts names when they're at a booth at a trade show, and IT doesn't have to build it, and it goes into a Google spreadsheet, right, or a Google sheet, and that's great. Well, that's where low-code kind of started, and then it just went from there. It all started like, here's a Google sheet, I need something in front of it to do data entry, and now it's a tens of billions of dollars of market. So you have these business technologists that are outside of IT, and then 80% of devs are outside of formal IT using low code today. So when you think about a developer technologist outside of IT, maybe they are in marketing, maybe they're in information systems group or something like that. They're using tools and they're writing code. And it's business production ready code that is achieving some functionality that they're not going to wait for you to build. And that's really where low code becomes so sort of like attractive to management, right? So if we look at this graph, 2025 was in that 40 billion, 2024 just under 40, but 2027, 80 billion. So the numbers are anywhere from like 85 to $100 billion in tools being sold every year that are low code tools. And now today, everyone who uses Microsoft Office has low-code tools because you have Power Apps, you have Power Flow, you have all these things. They're all considered low-code. So the message is if you're not using low-code today for something, you will be, because it, along with AI, will accelerate what you're doing. And it will remove those things that are in your backlog that then you just don't have to worry about. So hey, let's go spend maybe $20,000 on some low-code tool, right? And now let's give it to the marketing department. And then all the stuff marketing needs, you don't have to worry about. You do have to worry about governance. You have to worry about access to data. So governance does come into play here. One of the biggest challenges with low-code is that it created this concept of shadow IT, where the IT guy, your CTO, wants to control everything, right? Like they don't give anyone access to any APIs, any data, anything like that. But all of a sudden, marketing ordered some tool from Coney, and now they're building applications, and they're asking some guy, hey, can you give me access to this database? And the guy's like, yeah, I guess. He gives it to him, and now all of a sudden, your corporate data is in someone who has no idea how to handle data, right? And that's the same problem with ChatGPT. I said, oh, you could use, analyze your data set. Well, as soon as you upload your data, it's in the model forever. It will get out. It's going to leak. So be careful when you do that. But this is what happens. So governance across ChatGPT, so governance on your AI, governance on your low code ends up being something that's really, really important. And so now the spectrum here, this is a cool chart because it's showing you that even though you may not be using low code today, there's still a runway here where it just becomes a ubiquitous part of what you're going to be dealing with every day at the office. You're going to go in, and instead of doing everything in the developer tool that you're using today, there'll be some other tool that is automating or generating code or doing part of the work that you would have normally done by hand, just like ChatGPT. So the logical marriage is low code and AI when you start thinking about it, and then you start thinking about this composability, and it all kind of comes together. So here's some other really good statistics. 70% of enterprise apps will start with low code tools by 2025. And this is actually happening. So 2025 is only a couple years away. So maybe this is 2027. It doesn't really matter. It's in the next few years, right? So when you are looking at how you purchase software for your productivity at your company, and then if you are a software vendor, like you're selling services into companies like our product, those companies are using low code. So not only how can you add a prompt for AI in your application, but how can you enable low code? So Gartner actually, I had a meeting with one of their analysts a while back, and he said, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, they tracked about 50 low-code vendors. It might have been 100. Now it's like 400 or 500 that are just purely low-code. But if you look at any SaaS company today, they all want to be low-code. They all have a low-code piece to them. So the recommendations here, obviously start with your business outcome. That's the whole purpose here before evaluating your technology stacks for low-code. Do you need code gen, automation, forms, back office? So think about the sort of stuff that you might benefit from or your customers might benefit from. And the biggest thing is the solution for a citizen developer like this technologist, or is it for a pro dev? Because a pro dev is going to be or demand like more sophistication in the tooling that you might be using in IT. And then finally, be prepared for very rapid change, because the low-code space, just like the AI space, is changing very rapidly. So whatever happens today, 12 months from now, is going to be actually completely different. So the conclusions here, this kind of wraps up, and I kind of mentioned it, where all of these technologies come into play. One of the key business drivers was also design systems, but I had too many slides, so we'll talk about it at next year's keynote. But when you think about AI, and you think about low code, and you think about these, how they can come together and deliver this high value business outcome in something in a package that you could put maybe into a super app or a micro app or some composable app, you're going to get a lot of benefit from that. So I didn't go into design systems today, but how many of you guys are using design systems at your job today to build software? Okay, so a little bit more. And again, design systems feed into low code, and it's all tied together into building these high-value business outcomes. So I just wanted to, with my last 5 minutes, show a couple examples. All the images in my slides today I generated with Bing. I typed in a prompt, and it generated the images. But I think you saw in Donna's talk, not all AI is equal. So this is the question I asked. I said, can you create a modern image of app composability showing how mini apps or micro apps can be composed, blah, 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 blah. This is what ChatGPT gave me using DALL-E. And I'm not kidding. This is a screenshot of what it gave me. And then the exact same thing, copy and pasted, was from Bing. Well, I will say it was from Windows Copilot, the new button on your Windows Start menu for 2011 H2. I clicked that, I just typed it in, boom, I was done. The other thing I did is I said, you know what? I want to try a couple of these tools and avoid doing all these slides. Whoops, how do I do this? Let me end my slideshow. Okay, cool. So I went to the web and I said, give me a slide AI maker. So the first thing that came up was Slides AI. What a great name, right? I mean, and so I gave it the same thing, but I actually listed, I said, these are the 4 things that matter. And this is what it decided to give me. AI, okay, that's cool. DevOps, like, it's not a slide deck for Bobby over there. What? This is not a trend. These are boring. So somehow the AI just kind of made stuff up. I took the same thing and I went over to this thing called Gamma, and look what it did. It did exactly what I asked it. It created a slide on AI and machine learning. It made all this up. I didn't make any of this up. It made this up. Composo did a slide for me. There's my design system stuff that I didn't talk about. Low code, no code. Oh, I also had BI and analytics in there. We would have been here all night. Industry innovation, it kind of made this up, but it actually created something cool and useful, right? There's a lot of stuff in here, and it was the same prompt that I gave to slides.ai, right? So while slides.ai has the Google juice because it came up first, this one also was like 4th or 5th, but it did actually exactly what I wanted. And then I also asked it, I said, how can, I want to upload my PowerPoint and I want to get notes from it. I just want you to summarize my PowerPoint. I don't have notes in my PowerPoint, just take what's in the slides. So I found this thing called There's an AI for That, and it pointed me to slide notes, and I uploaded this to, oh no, let's connect here. I uploaded my slide deck. It would only take 5 megabytes, so I had to delete all the images. But let's see if this will refresh. Yeah, maybe not. But anyway, it actually used AI to summarize my talk, right? So, I mean, just unbelievable. But the final thing that I want to show is something that actually has been a little... It's been advertised lately more and more.
Днес ще се съсредоточим върху водещите тенденции в постигането на бизнес резултати и стойност през 2023 година.
Hold on, we're going crazy
Първата
here.
тенденция е генеративното AI, което предизвиква голям интерес. И лидерите очакват генеративното AI да...
Close. Let's open that up again. Open recent. ISTA 2023, this guy. Okay, so I use this tool called Synthesia. And this is the prompt that I put in. It has a little AI wizard, so I just pasted in that little bit of text. And what it did is, let me get rid of this, is it actually, I'll play the video here, you can see that, oh, and I told it to do it in Bulgarian, right? So it's actually, I recorded it and then it speeds up. It started to create a video for me based on those few little bullets of prompts. So it did the whole thing, right? And so now I use this product at Infragistics for videos that I do. And what we'll do here is we'll make it bigger. And check this out.
Днес ще се съсредоточим върху водещите тенденции в постигането на бизнес.
Now I can tell you, I do not speak Bulgarian, but that's me.
Първата тенденция е генеративното AI, което предизвиква
And
голям
I don't even know what
интерес.
it's saying, so hopefully it's nothing offensive, honestly. It took it and it created something about AI. But what I did with this product is I took like a 2-minute video of myself reading a script, and now I can speak any language, like 70 languages. All I got to do is give it text. And that's it. And that's it. And so the way that this works is, and it's pretty crazy. I mean,
Втората тенденция е съставността на приложенията, която се отнася до модулни
yeah, it's going to keep going.
доставящи функционалност чрез API.
I mean, I had a lot to say.
Базирани на събития.
So when I got here today, the guys were joking about, oh, you're going to be doing this with a hologram. Yes, that is my goal. So the hologram is the next thing, but I'll open this up, and it's a little slow. It's using my, this is the title in Bulgarian. And if I click Edit Video, this is what it created, and it did it 100% with the AI. And that's the text, and there's me. And then when you say generate, it uploads it to the cloud, and then it moves my head and mouth to make it look like I'm actually speaking Bulgarian. So anyway, that's all I have for today. I want to thank everyone for attending ISTA. This was an amazing conference, and thank you for having me. And if you want to contact me about any of these tools, just shoot me an email, or just send me an email, and I'll be happy to share any of them that you'd like. But thanks again, everyone.